All right, Herbie, help me out here. If Alabama and Ohio State were that close going into this weekend, according to the committee, then how did Ohio State not move up a little bit and Alabama go down since one played and one didn't?
I don't necessarily think that there's an equation or anything that you can point to as far as evidence. I think I'm an example of what the committee ended up doing. I said on game day Saturday morning at the ACC championship, and we got into this discussion, these what-if scenarios, and we said, what if the favorite scenario plays out? What if Ohio State beats Wisconsin, and who's going to be in that fourth spot? And I said, based on Ohio State's resume, they would be Big Ten champ, and they'd have 3 wins over Alabama. I thought Ohio State would have the edge. Then I watched the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, and I don't know if the committee looked at it the way I did, but after the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, you're asking me if the goal was to put the best 4 teams in. I said Alabama after watching the Big Ten championship. Despite them winning the game, I felt that Alabama should be the team that should go ahead of Ohio State. I don't know what the committee looks at. I know there are coaches on the committee. I got to believe that at the end of the day, when you watch 12 or 13 weeks of college football, I personally believe the best 4 teams are in the playoffs. How they got there, I'll leave it up to everybody to speculate because it's subjective.
But I also look at the conference title game, and I don't know the value of it, Herbie. USC, to me, should have been in where Wisconsin is now. I want to see what you've done in the last couple of weeks. Alabama hasn't looked impressive. Ohio State, you can't get rid of the Iowa loss. Where everybody understands that. They did go out and play a tough schedule. They played Oklahoma. They lost to Oklahoma. I understand all of those things. But by the end of the year, Alabama did not distinguish themselves as a great team. We know they're a great brand. I thought that these other schools that played for a conference championship, won a conference championship, at least have played well in the latter part of this season. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to take away from what Ohio State and USC did this year. I mean, your goal when you get together in August, every conference, is to win a championship. And Ohio State, they get rings. They get their picture put up in the Woody Hayes facility. The same could be said for USC. So what they accomplished is great. Again, all I can go by is I agree with what you're saying about Alabama against Mississippi State and Auburn. It wasn't necessarily their best brand of football, and they would tell you that a lot of the injuries started to mount up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I would tell you by the time these teams all get together in late December and early January, I would challenge you to watch Alabama and watch how they play against Clemson and tell me they're not one of the best 4 teams. It's just listen, I'm an Ohio. I went to Ohio State. I was a captain there. If anybody wants to pull out the pom-poms and say Ohio State should be there, you would think it would be me. I've always, for 22 years, said what I think, for better or worse. And I'm just telling you, after watching all these teams play, Alabama is better than USC. I don't care what the numbers show. I don't care what conference championships they're playing in. Alabama is a better team. So if the goal of the committee, they don't have to necessarily have answers for why they're putting teams in the top 4. Mm-hmm. They don't have to look at this team won this game, this team lost that game. You've got coaches that evaluate game film. And if they're going to look at the same thing I'm looking at, they're going to tell you that Alabama is just a better team. And at the end of the day, they don't have to have reasons. If Ohio State went out and beat Wisconsin the way they did in 2014, when they were in question that year, TCU and Baylor were the odds-on favorites to get in that year, and Ohio State leapfrogged both of those teams into the top 4, and they went on to win the national championship. As you'll notice, they've won 59-0. Urban Meyer was on top of mountains that night, telling everybody in the world that his team should be in over TCU and Baylor. Urban Meyer wasn't on top of mountains this time, yelling about how his team should be in. And when Urban Meyer got the news, Urban Meyer wasn't beating on top of a table saying, how dare they leave my team out. Urban Meyer, I think, deep down knows that his team's probably not ready for what they would have seen if they took on Clemson this year. So, to me, the best 4 got in. We can argue about it. We can discuss how they came to this. At the end of the day, it's just about who are the best teams. I personally look at it and say the committee has some serious stones, I guess you could say, to put the SEC champ in, an ACC champ in, leave out the Big Ten champ, throw in another SEC champ, and the Big 12 champion gets in with Oklahoma. The easy way, the politically correct way, would have been to put Ohio State in and kind of check all the boxes, no harm, no foul. Instead, I think people should be applauding that they were willing to do this, because next year it might be your team that's in this scenario. It might be your conference that's in this scenario. So I applaud what they did. It took a lot of courage and guts to do it. And like I said, at the end of the day, in my opinion, they have the best 4 teams in.
He's Kirk Herbstreit from the Mothership. College game day will be in Philadelphia. It's Army versus Navy. All right, a couple other items. Who's going to coach Tennessee? Somebody has to coach Tennessee, so who's going to get the job, Herbie?
I heard the names that you brought up. I think the most important thing, how crazy of a week was that for Tennessee and for their fan base? Most important thing that happened is they put one of their own on top of this leadership in Philip Fulmer, a guy that accomplished a great deal as a coach, was there as a player. And I think, if anything, it just settles down the noise. Instead of, they've had leadership from everywhere else except Tennessee. And I think that is an important hire. And now they can kind of go about how they're going to come up with who eventually should be their head coach. I have no idea. And now, isn't it interesting how now it got quiet?
Yeah.
I mean, there for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it was like people were reporting planes are going over to Stillwater. Planes are headed over here to West Lafayette. They're looking at Jeff Brom. They're looking at Gundy. Oh, no. Now they're going over here to Dave Doran. I mean, everybody knew everything. Now, all of a sudden, it's quiet. And so I would not be surprised to see a name surface that nobody's talking about, because I think that with Philip Fulmer in charge, they're doing a much better job of keeping it quiet and trying to figure out who's the best fit.
Could Baker Mayfield get every first-place vote for the Heisman?
And one last thing on Tennessee. I'm sorry, Dan. I heard somebody when I first came on say that Tennessee's not a great job. I disagree with that. You could have said the same thing about Alabama when Nick Saban got there back in 06, 07. Alabama was not a great job, but look who showed up to make it a great job. If you find a great coach with the history of Tennessee football, that orange tea travels well in recruiting, maybe as well as any other brand in the SEC. You don't have to recruit just in Tennessee and North Carolina and Georgia. That orange tea will go into Texas. It'll go to California when they're really going. So if they make the right selection, it'll be funny in 2 or 3 years to see how everybody will see that Tennessee's a dumpster fire. Who would want that job? To, wow, that is a top 10 job. So it's very, very important they get this right, because to me it still can be a great job. Second thing on Baker Mayfield, it's a slam dunk. People want to try to talk about the Kansas game and some of the incidents and some of the things that he's done. It's not going to be enough to hold people back. I voted last night, and you're sitting there looking at 1, 2, and 3. Very, very difficult to look at that ballot and watch what Baker Mayfield's done from week 1 all the way through to the Big 12 championship game and not put him at the top of the board. Some other guys have had some great years. What Bryce Love did at Stanford is remarkable. Lamar Jackson had a better year this year individually than he did a year ago. So there's great, worthy candidates. But today Baker Mayfield had an incredible year.
One final thing, if you could, and I'm looking at the language here, I think, for the college playoff committee, this with the Mothership's TV deal, that the language, they can't alter the playoff Final Four. It goes through 2026. Does that sound right, Herbie? And if you could change it right now and go to 6 or 8, you had the power to change it right now, would you?
No, for now, and depending on the year, it's easy to kind of debate, hey, 4 is right. Maybe 2 is better this year or that year. I like 4 because I like the debate. I think it's healthy. I think it's easy to just say, hey, put 5 Power 5 conference teams in, find 3 others, and everybody goes home happy. I don't think there's anything wrong with teams being left out. I think, unfortunately, there's such focus in our sport right now, Dan, with college football and the playoff, that this era of player, unfortunately, is being left out. USC gets left out. Ohio State gets left out. Others get left out. And it's almost like a buzzkill. It's like, oh, my gosh, what a letdown of a year. Meanwhile, they won a conference championship, and they're going to play each other in a huge bowl game. And when you and I were kids, it was fun to watch these teams and these intersectional matchups in bowl games, and there was pride on the line, and it was a lot of fun to watch it. And I still feel that way. I think this generation of fan it doesn't feel that way because it's all in or nothing. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the kind of the sad part of this deal. So I would love to see people still put, some importance and appreciation for playing in these other bowl games. Because for the kids, I'm just telling you, you watch some of these bowl games and we can poo-poo them and all we want. For the players, there's still a huge deal when they get a chance to go and play in these. But I would keep it at 4 right now. I'm comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with teams being left out and being frustrated and trying to get better the next year.
Thanks, Herbie. Tell the boys we said hello. Have fun in Philadelphia with Army and Navy this weekend.
Dan, one last thing. You guys on Sunday night, I've gotten so busy over the years with college football, and Sunday football is hard for me to always tune in. And I go to some of the Titans games and miss a lot of the games during the day. I've just gotten into the habit of watching your guys' show in the pregame with all the highlights and your guys' analysis and then the game itself. You guys really just set the bar on Sunday night. So keep up the great work. Have a great postseason and great holidays. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Herbie. I appreciate that.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.